Good morning. My name is Linda Schmidt, and I'm one of the docents here at the Alfred Caldwell Lily Pool. And we're at the Lily Pool in late October, and it's definitely the late fall look. And we're going to spend some time talking about trees and leaves that change colors. So it's actually a wonderful day here. We got some rain, a lot of leaves, so we'll have a nice time. We have a lot of oaks in the lily pool. Oops, and I need to untangle myself. And one of the more interesting ones is this one, which is a swamp oak. It's an unusual because it has several different oaky type leaves, long narrow ones, and then you can see wider ones and even a few more rounded ones. So this swamp oak is right here to greet us as we come in. You know, oaks they hang on to their leaves late into the fall, and actually the leaves stay green pretty late into the fall. Sometimes you can see some of the little, but I don't see any today, acorns. Yeah, just leaves. But yeah, it's a nice one, and a lot of people don't know swamp oak was pretty common up here in this area of Illinois. It likes to grow near water. And it's one of the oaks that we associate with Illinois. And an oak, and we'll see one today, a white oak, is the state tree. So this little tree is a redbud, and you can see that the leaves, which are heart-shaped, turn yellow in the fall. You know, redbuds are planted here. They're an understory tree, which means that they grow better under the big trees. They bloom in the spring, pink blooms that are attached to the bark, which is an unusual way for blooms to be. Blooms that are attached to the bark are called cauliflory. And the redbuds are very lovely little understory trees, and they're used to grace the area alongside of the lily pool. They're in the legume family, and they have long bean pods. All of these, I think, have been harvested by the chipmunks, so you don't see any right now. And you can actually eat both the little beans in the bean pods, and you can eat the flowers. And I have eaten one here, and it actually has a peppery taste. A nice view here, and what we're looking at is a beautiful American maple, sugar maple. And these are the ones that in the spring would have sap running through them that would be harvested by the Native Americans. And one of the reasons that we can tell that it's one of our sugar maples is because it has red. The leaves turn red in the fall. We also have Norway maples here, and their leaves in the fall are always yellow. So this is an American maple. Right behind we can see a pretty tall tree. That might be a Norway maple behind it with the yellow leaves, and up toward the top we can see a big nest. Maybe, a hawk nest or a squirrel nest up there. Yes, but that's a beautiful view across the lily pool to see that tree. And if we look this way, we can see the dawn redwood, which is I regard as one of the signature trees here in the lily pool. And it really stands out at this time of year, sort of a sentinel above all of the other trees. How tall do you think that is? Maybe 75 feet, maybe a little even taller.
Yeah, something like that.
It's really up there.
Right?
Yeah, and you can see from here how straight and how true it is. It's not a real branchy tree, so redwoods are really valuable for the lumber that they have. And that's a wonderful one. And this one is deciduous. It's hanging on to its needles right now, but shortly the needles will drop off and we'll see the bare branches. And then in the spring, they come back and they're bright green tufts on the branches. It's really a very beautiful tree, and we're lucky to have it. The legend is that it was planted as a memorial tree here, probably about, at this point, maybe 40 years ago. But that's been kind of lost to the past at this point. Yes, and next to it, sort of waving around, I believe that's one of our oak trees, one of our big oak trees. And you can tell an oak tree. People always say, how do you tell trees in the winter? So you can tell them by some of the branching effect. So this one definitely has the horizontal branching that's typical of an oak tree. And the way that the leaves are moving looks very much like an oak tree. So, yeah. So on our tree tour today, we're going to look at some of the really amazing signature trees here in the lily pool. And this is an American sycamore, and quite an old tree. It's got a huge caliper trunk at this point, and you can see as you go up, the bark is much smoother on the new part of the tree up toward the top, and in the bottom it's very much flaky, sort of exfoliar type bark. Sycamore leaves are huge. You can see the size of them. Some of them are 8 or 9 inches across. Very beautiful, and they turn yellow and dark brown in the fall. But sycamores also hang on to their leaves very late into the fall, and in the spring they're one of the last trees to leaf out. We always start wondering if it's ever going to leaf out in the spring because it's often so late. But it's quite beautiful with the very light gray branches up there against the sky, very smooth. And it's one of the tallest and most wonderful trees here at the lily pool. On this side, we have our black walnut, who's almost lost all of its leaves. So I was looking around earlier to see if I could see any dropped walnuts, but I think the chipmunks have eaten them all. We have 2 walnut trees here. And walnut trees turn yellow. Walnut trees grow up very straight. Originally they were used for the wood, which is a beautiful wood, a beautiful hardwood. Not many walnuts are left in the wild these days because they were all cut down when the hardwood forests disappeared. And people used the walnuts themselves. Actually, they shelled them and ate them, which are delicious, but you could also use walnuts for dye. So if you start working with walnuts, you need to make sure you wear gloves or expect to have sort of black purple hands for several days until it wears off. But our walnuts, we had some this year. We saw them several, throughout the summer, but the chipmunks eat them so fast. It's like they're here and gone in a day. So this, I think, is, and you can tell me if you think this is the case, but I think this is our ironwood tree. Which is also called Hops hornbeam. And in the spring you can see blooms on it that look like hops, which is where it gets its name. And the leaves are sort of hoppy looking as well, if you've ever seen the hop fields out in Oregon in the western United States. It has very interesting bark, very ridgy going up the tree, which is another reason that I think of it as ironwood. And ironwood is named that because the wood is very hard. It's a type of wood that was originally used for hammer handles. So you know what a hard wood that had to be a hammer. It's a nicely shaped tree, very straight again, very true, and that bark is just so interesting the way it grows. Yeah, we'll have to look for it in the spring if we're doing another walk, so we can point out the hoppy blooms. Yeah. Okay. So this is one of our cottonwood trees, and people hate cottonwoods because of the fluff that drops off of them in the spring. But they're quite a beautiful tree. They grow pretty rapidly. The leaves are beautiful. And if you look up here at the sky, you can see the leaves moving. And when there are a lot of leaves on cottonwood, you hear the rustle. And it's quite a musical tree, I think, in many ways. So cottonwood, vertical bark, so the branching is sort of vase shape up toward the sky. So if we didn't see the leaves and know that this was a cottonwood, that would be one of the ways that we could identify it. And I think it's a nice tree, although I probably wouldn't have a cottonwood in my garden. So right here, this smaller bush, basically, Amelanchier, is American Serviceberry. So it has blooms and berries in the spring, and we can see it here in the fall look. Very branchy. The early pioneers used to call this Serviceberry because they knew that when the Amelanchier was blooming, and it blooms very early in the spring, that then it was going to be time for the preacher to come and they could bury their dead, which they were unable to do when the ground was frozen throughout the winter. So that's how it got the name Serviceberry. Amelanchier. And it's quite a wonderful little shrub. The birds really like the little berries in the spring. And it's, I would say, well-mannered little shrub as well. Easy to care for. So, yeah, it's a nice little tree. Wow, that maple is just glorious, isn't it, in the sunshine?
Yeah.
It really is. Okay,
Okay.
but thank you for joining us on our walk through the lily pool today. You know, it's still open probably for 2 or 3 more weeks, and it's really a nice time to come and see the fall and how the lily pool changes with each season. So I hope you can stop by.